a little decoration. So yeah.
Beautiful. Well, we've been just talking international fashion here at Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. I want to welcome everyone. Bonjour, bienvenidas. And it is just an absolute joy to be with you on World Poetry Day. In March 21st, 1999 was the first World Poetry Day. Wow. Designated by UNESCO. And we celebrate today World Poetry Day for the very first time on Cultivating Voices Live Poetry, because last year at this time, Cultivating Voices Live Poetry did not exist. We are approaching 1 year next week, and I couldn't be happier than to lean into that first year anniversary than with a World Poetry Day celebration, because that has kind of epitomized our journey as through the growth of our reading series. Well, I'm Sandra Yannone. I am the author of Boats for Women from Salmon Poetry over in County Clare, Ireland. And again, I am thrilled to welcome all of you to our World Poetry Day celebration. We will be today featuring up to 6 poets on our featured reading who really are able to bring a representation of linguistic diversity and the breadth of poetic language, including different home languages. I really am absolutely thrilled to be able to celebrate that today, genuinely. That, you know, poetry is a medium of many languages. And in fact, when I listen to poems not in a language that I speak, I still hear the essence of poetry. And to me, that's what makes poetry so exquisite as an art form, is that whether I know the language or not, I can hear something of humanity coming through in the musicality of it. Well, today I am really just absolutely overjoyed to be able to welcome Carolyne Wright, Indran Amirthanayagam, Fergus Hogan, Tanya Ko Hong, Rachel Gomez, and we hope that Yuyutsu Sharma will be joining us from Nepal. We are hoping that that will happen. And without further ado, I'm going to move us to our first reader for today, with encouragement to all of you that are waiting to read and hear the open mic that Kim Ports Parson is holding that space in the chat here in Zoom. And welcome to those of you watching us also from Facebook, and those of you who will be watching us at some other time on the recording. Well, first reading with us today, I am so happy to have Carolyne Wright, whose title poem from her latest book, This Dream, the World New and Selected, received a Pushcart Prize and was included in the Best American Poetry. Her co-edited anthology, Raising Lily Ledbetter, Women Poets Occupy the Workspace, from Lost Horse Press, 2015, received 10 Pushcart nominations and was a finalist for the Forward Review's Book of the Year Awards. And of course, we were so fortunate last Labor Day to feature the poets from Raising Lily Ledbetter, and we are excited that we will resume that practice on Labor Day this year with another reading from the anthology. Carolyne is a Seattle native, and she has authored 9 books and chapbooks of poetry, essays, poetry in translation, and she teaches for the Richard Hugo House and attends and teaches at many literary conferences and festivals. She also is a senior editor for Lost Horse Press, the editor of that incredible anthology, Raising Lily Ledbetter. Would you please join me in welcoming our first poet here on World Poetry Day, Carolyne Wright.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending upon where you are. I'm going to start. I sort of moved my reading order around because, just because of sort of slight changes in the cast at the moment. But I'm going to start with a poem of my own from This Dream the World, which is my new and selected, with that lovely cover here, showing either a sunset or a sunrise. And I'm going to start with a poem called Ancestress. It is dedicated to my paternal grandmother, my father's mother, Eva Madeline Ball, who was originally from, she was born in Harrogate, Yorkshire, but she was originally, she ended up in Ballsbridge, Dublin. And then that was before she and my father's father, Ernest Churchill Wright, came to the US, to America, as they called it. And so I want to read this poem for her. It is just called Ancestress, Ballsbridge, Dublin, circa 1900, for my paternal grandmother, Eva Madeline Ball. She climbs the stairs slowly, a grand old lady, stares out stained windows at the frozen garden, ties edged ribbons to the stray hairs of the day. Not much is left of the old ways. After the children moved out, the secret halls and corridors seem to go on forever in all directions, a forgotten maze. The many-generationed family had learned perfectly the art of discreet evasion. Every time a butler passed, a door jamb offered itself, or a Persian drapery, or a deep bay window. Hide here, they whispered. The others never look, never imagine anything foreign creeping in. It's always afternoon here, always prosperous and between wars, always dust-free where the sun falls. Alone, her life runs down, clock left in a vacant room, her mind reshelving each thought. Librarian at closing. Forgotten questions pay their calls as the afternoon sinks to its knees and light leans toward the far edge of the fields like a child over a ledge. What does the blood say? Silence, please. The breath, bird's voice, the trees, the trees. So that's an entirely invented history of my grandmother. But that was actually more like something from the previous generation. Okay, I'm going to go now to, because we have a component here from the subcontinent, I'm going to go to the anthology of Bengali women's poetry, love poems, Majestic Nights, love poems of Bengali women. And I'm going to read one from a poet who was from Kolkata, Nobonita Dev Sen, who passed away about 1.5 years ago. She was named, and this connects the generations, talking about ancestors. She was named Her first name was given to her by Rabindranath Tagore, who was very elderly when Navanita was born. But this is a poem by Navanita called The Temple. For you, sky, river, flower, or a book, pictures. For you, morning, afternoon, night. For you, anything. Far away, among the stars, among your stars, a body of shadows, hard darkness, a poisoned arrow, tremors, tremors of earth, tremors of plowed earth, a vortex of blue agony in an unflinching fist, or perhaps the ecstasy of prayer? Ah, the most ancient virtue within the first sin.
Mm.
And that's Navanita. And I think I'll read one more from this anthology. This is from the poet Shamim Azad, who is from Bangladesh originally. She was from a place in this region of Sylhet, which is a province of Bangladesh, called Jamalpur. But she now lives in East London. She has been living in London since 1990, and she was teaching in the schools, and she does a lot of performance. She still writes in Bangla, but she's been a big advocate and activist for Bengali poetry, Bengali literature in the United Kingdom. So this is a poem of hers called Conjugal Prayer. How can I live with a saint in perpetual meditation who renounces everything at night and goes off to some dream city? Who in aspect and attire is handsome beyond compare, for whom a mere woman will not do forever? A touch to the forehead burns the whole body, the circle shrinks to the vanishing point. If at the golden moment flowers fall in showers, the sage goes on chanting his vows. The eyes don't cease blinking at the woman draped in gold. Coals don't glow in the chest. How could I ever live with a god? I want a man, not some deity. At the touch of his fingertips, harvests will flourish. When the sky clouds over, he'll ask for tea. The boy who'll take me to see a film by Rai, to demonstrations, Chinese restaurants, impromptu gossip sessions. He'll shake down the branches on the bush to pluck me a scarlet hibiscus. And if I don't take it, he'll be glum-faced with abashment. If any day tension should arise between us, in our travels or in bed, he'll regard me as an adversary. When the last evening's hangover subsides at dawn, he'll bring me the sky in a deluge. Okay, thank you. Let's see, I have a choice. I could read one poem by Eugenia Toledo, which is from Chile, or maybe I will go to Brazil. Which would you prefer, Chile or Brazil? How many for Chile? How many for Brazil? Do I see more hands for Brazil? Okay, let's go to Brazil. Okay, Brazil. Okay, this is one of the poems from the first time I was in Salvador, Bahia, which is in the northeast of Brazil, that big bulge that comes out from the continent, the South American continent. And if you look at Africa, just a hop, skip, and a long voyage across the Atlantic, you'll see that the bulge of Brazil, the bulge of South America fits neatly into that crooked elbow of Africa, of the continent of Africa. So that is actually part of this poem, because Salvador and the state of Bahia are the most intensely Afro-Brazilian. I mean, the culture is in many ways very West African, and it's a unique mixture of African and Portuguese and Catholic and West African religion, which in Bahia is called Candomblé. So when I was in Bahia that first time and was first falling in love with that culture, I went to see what I call in the poem a conjure woman, because that was a term that was closest to what she might have been called had she been in New Orleans, which is the city closest to Salvador Bahia. Same idea of Mardi Gras, Carnaval, etc. So I went to see this conjure woman, which there in Candomblé is called a Mãe de Santo, or Ila Orisha. So I went to see her at her house somewhere in the city, and she literally had a crystal ball. So here's what happened. And she was telling me all these things, and she had a crystal ball and she was looking at it. So this is more or less what happened. And I went with a guy that I was sort of fond of at the time. Here's what happened. The conjure woman, São Salvador da Bahia. She blows on the crystal ball, tells me I can have anything. Hibiscus flowers, jacarandá wood charms, a powder from the Mercado Modelo that drives men wild. In the waiting room, the man I want drums his fingers, makes eyes at the honey-colored woman stirring something in the kitchen. Strands of blue pearls, passion flower lenço on her head, a little samba on the red floor tiles. Iemonjá, sea goddess, smiles and waves her fishtail from the poster on the wall. The conjure woman turns her wedding rings around a long story about the sea. Bahia dialect, the hushed syllables, palm trees reflecting on the water, whole sentences I want to understand. Samba school drums at the corners, cachaça bottles passed around, women singing the carnaval tune, não se esqueça de mim, don't leave me, don't forget. My future, full of missing words, eavesdropping at the tables of the deaf, late afternoon smell of exhaustion. He's gone. Lady Iemonjá laughs in the room above the kitchen. I cross the conjure woman's palm and go out. The whole town is in the streets, masked dancers drumming their true names from continents that still would fit together, embracing face to face like lovers in the salt and sweat of their sea-displacing passion. Fishermen drag in their nets and fall to their knees between the silver thighs of women. Thank you. Thanks so much, everybody. And here's to World Poetry Day. Hooray. Thank you. Obrigada. Dhunobad. That's enough. Gracias.
Gracias. Fantastic. What a carnivalesque way to begin our celebration of World Poetry Day. Thank you for the translations and the way that your reading brought us across the globe and helped to do what language can often do, which is help us dissolve and also understand, dissolve the borders, but also help us understand the power of cultural diversity as well. Thank you. Well, we move next to another wonderful person, poet, essayist, and translator that also epitomizes the work of bringing poetry to the world, and that is Indran Amirthanayagam. And Indran was born in Colombo, Ceylon, which is now understood to us as Sri Lanka. He was raised in Sri Lanka, London, and Honolulu. Indran has authored numerous poetry collections, including most recently Uncivil War and Coconuts on Mars, and in fact, even more recently, The Migrant States. He writes, translates, and publishes poetry and essays in English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, and Haitian Creole. He's a diplomat in the US Foreign Service, and he's based currently in Rockville, Maryland, where he is the editor of the journal, the Beltway Poetry Quarterly, which every quarter brings us voices from everywhere. Would you please welcome Indran Amirthanayagam?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sandra. Delighted to be part of this festive day. And I don't mean to dampen the day at all, but I think I want to remember today the passing of there's a book that was written in the 30s, about let us now praise famous men. Now, let us now praise famous men and women. In this case, Bob Hirshon, who passed away last night, the editor of Hanging Loose Press, a fine poet, who published my first book and has published two others as well, including The Migrant States. I thought I'd remember also today another writer who passed away, Adam Zaminsad, a Pakistani-born English writer, who's a close friend as well. And I'll read first a poem of Bob's to begin. And the poem of Bob's is called Superbly Situated, by Robert Hirshon. You politely asked me not to die, and I promised not to, right from the beginning. A relationship based on good sense and thoughtfulness in little things. I would like to be loved for such simple attainments as breathing regularly and not falling down too often, or because my eyes are brown or my father left-handed. And to be on the safe side, I wouldn't mind if somehow I became entangled in your perception of admirable objects. So you might say to yourself, I have recently noticed how superbly situated the Empire State Building is, how it looms up suddenly behind cemeteries and rivers, so far away you could touch it. Therefore I love you. Part of me fears that some moron is already plotting to tear down the Empire State Building and replace it with a block of Staten Island mother-daughter houses, just as part of me fears that if you love me for my cleanliness, I will grow filthy. If you admire my elegant clothes, I'll start wearing shirts with sailboats on them. But I've decided to become a public beach, an opera house, a regularly scheduled flight, something that can't help being in the right place at the right time. Come, take your seat. We'll raise the curtain, fill the house, start the engines, fly off into the sunrise, the spire of the Empire State, the last sight on the horizon as the earth begins to curve. Bob was born in 1936, which is also the year my mother was born, and the year Mario Vargas Llosa and Frank Etienne are born, still around. And so it's just, I remember writing a poem about that here some time ago. But anyway, Bob Hirshon, may his soul rest in peace. And now the other poem in memory for Adam. You told me not to bother about roots, to climb the trunk, to push branches away and reach the uppermost leaves, pointing towards heaven, the infinite. You resisted badgering about age and names. What do they matter, you said. You did not tell me that Adam was a pseudonym and your American single-room rent life a secret adventure where you explored the underbelly and the other side of cities. I did not know your family then, shan't cottage. You kept so many details in a lockbox beneath your beard. I wondered who was this angel with a razor blade and devilishly limber mind, haranguing me on a more than 20-block walk through Manhattan during our first encounter. We would enjoy others by sand dunes, driving up the road to La Molina in Lima, your earlier visit to Mexico City. I remember how much you wanted to meet the poor in the center of Santa Fe, not rich suburbanites on the hill, the Loma, where we hosted you. The money I earned as a diplomat brought a fine meal to the table, but you ate seeds instead and sported a body like a rod. You did not want any sign of privilege, no roly-poly belly. I wish I could have stopped that rogue driver who slammed you off a bicycle in Amsterdam and saved you thus from all the operations to come, the unfinished novels, the unpublished poems you did not have strength to revise, your complaints, but not your dismissals of dictators and your giving every last penny to the tramp, not your heart speech the last time we spoke in some gray evening after you left Lima, the ride to the airport, saying goodbye to the Americas and to you, Adam, always outside of Eden, beyond the uppermost leaf. And I'll read now, if I have time, two more poems. This one is called Rhyming Still, and I'll finish with a poem from Coconuts on Mars called Living Will. Rhyming Still. The easy rhyme jolted me. I did not expect the contemporary poet to fall back to cradle, lullaby, swing song, soothing kiss of lips and forehead, breeze of words humming in the ear. I did not expect this, as I have railed on street and in media about dominion of prose, or rather calling poetry what winds across the page, subject verb to object with a dull, muffled rhythm. I repeat, what pleasure to hear the poet's gentle chimes, his return to where the game starts, when you say to your child, God's in his heaven and the world's all right. Sleep tight. And I'll finish with a poem from Coconuts on Mars called Living Will. One day I will sit down with my soul and write that I've loved every bird that flew, every monkey on the branch, every elephant charging through the grass. I will say I love you as much as the baby gecko scampering past my foot, the snake rustling under the wood cut and stacked in my yard. I will say I've loved every creature, every song, every turn in the road, and I will be lying with my eyes open and my eyes closed. I am not God. I'm not even the dog loyal to his master who misses him blind, like his daughter in Lima, which I call at night until the next time we meet in dreams via chat, cheek to cheek, remembering always that in paradise there are no trains or roads or seas or death, no going away, no arriving, doors and garden open, souls who come and go, smiling, and all the angels, all birds, all dolphins, all men and women in song dancing, and why not, reciting the Song of Solomon, the epic poems, the love songs that consoled when we set off on the roads, hopped on trains and aeroplanes, got caught in traffic in our head, said goodbye before saying hello. Did I know you down there? You were the greengrocer I walked past going to school in London. Oh, my dear, how beautiful you are, Pauline, with ripe red hair, who shared the religion prize with me at St. Vincent's on Blandford Street. But you may be alive still, and I'm not ready to meet my maker, to be plucked from the cycle of rebirth. Not yet. I have poems to compose, children to raise, earth to cultivate. Come back later, angel. I have my will to revise. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Indran. And it's so hard for me to imagine that you and our next poet are people that I only met a year ago when I was at AWP, and that that now I seek out your voices often, and I'm so grateful, and thank you for reminding us through your reading of beloved poets to you and to many others that our voices carry, and that we stand on the shoulders of so many poets that have come before us. So thank you for bringing their spirits to World Poetry Day today. Well, as I mentioned, our next reader is a person that I met just a little over a year ago. We were at a reading together, and we were talking about it, and we met in a hallway at AWP. It was just a really wild meeting. And I'm so amazingly grateful that that serendipitous moment happened, because like Indran and Carolyne and Fergus and Rachel and you're all folks that joined us very early in this journey with Cultivating Voices. And so it's especially wonderful to have each of you here today to celebrate what you bring to the celebration of World Poetry Day, but it's equally satisfying for me to be able to welcome you as folks who read in the early days about a year ago with us. So thank you. Well, here is the bio for Tanya. Tanya Ko Hong is a poet, translator, and cultural curator who champions bilingual poetry and poets. Born and raised in South Korea, she immigrated to the US at the age of 18. She is the author of 4 books, most recently, The War Still Within, Poems of the Korean Diaspora, from Kaiso Flash Press 2019. I'm going to interrupt this bio to say, this is an essential book in all of your collections. Please purchase it, as well as the books of others here today. She is also the recipient of the Dunju Korean American Literature Award. And please correct my pronunciation if I was not in integrity there. Tanya has an MFA from Antioch University and is a PhD student in mythological studies at Pacifica Graduate Institute. She lives in Southern California with her husband and 3 children, and I'm curious if you're going to do your National Poetry Month again.
Again, right?
Oh my gosh. Welcome to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then thank you, Sandy, so much. And then that was last year, as we talked about. My book, The War Still Within, was published. And then I was so excited to bring this book to AWP. And then I have so many readings lined up and book launchings and everything. But everybody from Los Angeles said, hey, Tanya, we decided not to go because of the virus. And then everything, like maybe airport, whatever situation. And our Mr. T called what? China virus at the time? Yes. So that I was thinking, I don't want to deal with San Antonio airport and looking like a Chinese myself. I'm a Korean American. Don't want to be stopped by, don't want to get deal with it, like, you have a virus or things like that. So what the fuck? Excuse my language. Wow, I said fuck. It's very unbelievable I said that, because this is like, you cannot say those words in as a Asian women way. Like if my daughter say that word, I snap her, right? But I am just so mad right now. You know what happens? Because I am just so mad and angry. About what happened. Last couple days, I just had like a shock, and then I couldn't, it's the stage of denial. Like I was just like shut it down. But today it was like, yesterday I had with like a little reading, and then I just really cannot go there, but I have to express. And then I, as a Korean American woman, and I know what was happening, and I just really need to share authentically these feelings. And actually before that, I was gonna write out like a whole poem in Korean and then share with you. And with this, like talking about these 8 women, they're calling sexual symbols and all that kind of stuff. Are you out of your minds? Seriously? And I'm gonna give their names. I want you to repeat after me. And then I'm gonna give their name in Korean way. It's not Hyunjae Grant. You got wrong. We call last name first. Kim Hyunjung. Repeat after me. Kim Hyunjung. Yu Young-e. Thank you. Yu Young-e.
Yu Young-e.
Kim Sunja.
Kim
Kim
Sanja.
Sonja.
Park Sun-jung.
Park
Sun-jung.
Sun-jung.
And then I have a hard time too, because it's a Chinese name. I think it's Sojia Tan. That is a Chinese, the woman who is 49 years old. And then her name is in Chinese, Pure Honest. And then Diayu Fang, we don't know much about her. And then Adelina Ashley. She's the mother of 8 months old and 13 years old. And then Paul Andrea Michelle, 54 years old. So I'm gonna tell you, Hyunjung, Young-e, Sunja, they got shot by their head. And I believe Sunja got shot by chest. I don't think I can read a poem. I just have to tell you about the story. And I know these women, where they come from, because I cannot speak beyond behalf of other people, but I can speak on behalf of these Korean women, because I am Korean, and then I know where they come from. Because this Hyunjung Kim, the last name is Grant. And then these 2 sons said like they probably didn't see the daddy. And then she was the woman who worked so hard. And then I opened, like I was looked at website, and then there's like a 24 hours spot. That means they're sleeping on the side and somebody wants a massage, they go do massage. Honestly, be honest with you, I go get massage because it's so good. I grew up in the like a public bath. So I go scrub and then get massage. That's like my culture. I grew up that way. So when I'm in America, when I get like a stiff, I go get massage. And then I know these women's like sisters. I call them my sister, younger sister if they're young. I call Omni, older sister if they're older than me. You know, they work so hard. I know I could call Lucy. Lucy's the same woman like this woman who works, raised her daughter, so struggling to pick up her daughter. And then what she says, like, when I could give all this to my daughter, I'm just so happy. It doesn't matter. You know what? I raised my 3 children as well too. So I go massage. Hey, can you give me a massage at 7 in the morning? That's the only time that I have time. You know what Lucy say? Okay, Onni, older sister, I could do that. Come after you drop your child and then I'll meet you. That's why, Sandy, I need to put my name out. That is the whole point. I want to give my name out so that they recognize there's a Korean woman. English is not her first language. And I'm struggling. I'm surviving. I'm trying to give a voice. It's not just for me. I am thinking about the picture. I saw the picture, Hyunjung, with the 2 sons. And when I saw the picture, I could see that she's working so hard, but that I see the smile on her face, that she's proud that she could work and then feed these 2 boys. I mean, they didn't, like her son said, like they don't have nobody, just like 3 of them surviving here. I think I just like because I don't want to spend all this time, so I just can't. And Aaron, we just say middle name because we don't want to even say big name. He's 21 years old. I have, and then their son is 23 and 21st. Like, so then they're about, so actually they're shot by their son's age. We say, stop Asian hate. I wanted to record that, just stop hate. It's not stop Asian. It's not Black Lives Matter. It's all our lives matter. And stop hate, not Asian hate, or not Black hate, or not white hate. It's just stop hate. I think I was gonna read so many poems, but like it just got into me. And then people are saying, undocumented, document. Okay, is that's really matter? What matter is we are human. And they're working so hard in this condition, COVID-19, and they're giving you massage to survive. I was gonna read a whole many poems, but then I just gonna read one last poem that which I read, like, so this book that I wrote like in 1993, it has a lot of my immigrant struggles there. But I just gonna read one poem, Faith in Love. I'm gonna read Korean in English. 사랑의 믿음. 온 세상에 어둠이 몰려와 나의 강명을 빼앗아 아무것도 볼 수 없지만 내 두려워하지 않음은 저를 안고 계신 당신의 숨결을 온몸으로 느끼기 때문입니다. 고통의 요람에 내가 누워 견딜 수 없는 괴로움에 내 살과 뼈가 녹을지라도 내 기쁨의 눈물을 흘리면 당신이 주신 빛의 생명을 소유한 까닭입니다. 사랑하는 사람들이 아픔과 상처를 남기고 쉽게 떠나지만 내 외롭지 아니함은 당신 품 안에 나의 영원한 안식처가 있음을 알기 때문입니다.
나 지금 미지의 인생의 행소를 걸어가면서 이 강야의 목마름을 두려워하지 아니함은 이제는 나를 영원히 지키시는 당신의 사랑을 느끼기 때문입니다. Just like for personal say that my mom tried to send us here, America. And all the suffer, she was probably like working like 현정, 영애, 선자, 순정. And she had to die heart attack in age 59. I could see her face when we're eating something and then she sparkled, just joy, happy that she could do these things for her children. And then suddenly you hear that your mom died in heart attack. I still, like it's been so long, but I still can't go there. And then I think that's the love that my mom gave us is still, I remember that how humanistic she was. She stopped by for beggars, gave all her money. Faith in love. The darkness descends on the whole world and robs my sight. I cannot see anything, but I am not afraid because I feel your breath holding me in your arms. I lie down on the crater of pain. My bones and skin melt with unbearable pain. But I am not shedding. I am shedding. I am crying tears of joy because I own the life of light that you gave. People who I love have left me easily, have left scars and sorrow behind. But I am not lonely because I know I have my internal reach in your arms. Now I walking in mysterious path of life. I am not afraid of thirst in the desert because I have faith in you, who always loves and keeps watch over me. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask everyone to do something that I never do, which is I don't usually interrupt between the readers, but I think you all will understand why I would like to ask you to unmute yourselves and send some love to our dear friend who has like brought so much humanity to us today. And Tanya, I am so glad that you came today, and I just really appreciate, I just really appreciate and love you. And I always love what you bring because you carry everyone with you. And I know that I will never forget today because of what you shared and the way you shared it. So I'm going to just ask everyone, if we were in a room together, I'm a hugger. I'll be giving you the biggest hug on the planet that I could give you. And I'm just going to ask everybody to unmute and just send you some love.
Hugs.
Hey,
Love,
Tanya.
love, Tanya. Love to
Hey,
you.
all
Love,
love,
Tanya.
Tanya.
Love. Here's a big
Seremos.
hug.
Lots and
Big
lots of
hug.
Thank you.
Tanya.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you.
God bless
Such
you.
a gift.
I think we should give Tanya a standing ovation, but she'll only be looking at her midriff, so it mightn't look, mightn't be the most complimentary picture of us. Oh, well done, Kate.
Stand up, but I'll lift my laptop with me and it'll look just the same, you know?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Tanya.
All right. Thank you. Well, I have to say, as the host of Cultivating Voices Live Poetry, that I seek to hold a space for people to be their authentic selves, and that's what you shared with us today, and you told us as much that that's what you could do, and I'm so glad that you brought yourself today to this platform. It would have been all too easy to contact me to say, I just can't do the reading today, Sandy. And I think all of us are for the better for having spent some time with you today, and with your mom, and with all those women.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. I'm going to move to our next reader. Another dear friend of mine, and I know that it's challenging to follow something so transcendent as what we just experienced with Tanya. But I know this next person is up to that, following and making more connections. And that is our dear friend, Fergus Hogan. Fergus Hogan lives and works in Waterford, Ireland, and his chapbook of poems is Bittern Cry. He lectures full-time in systemic family therapy and narrative and storytelling therapy at the Waterford Institute of Technology. I've actually been on his campus where he works. His main research and publications are in the area of men's lives and fatherhood. His first book is the novel, The Wisdom of Fiona, a retelling of the Irish legend. Would you please welcome Fergus Hogan?
Sandy, Tanya, for a minute, I've read with and just after Tanya before, and it's a blessing each time. My heart is racing tonight, Tanya, and I'm going to begin with some poems for you and your sisters, our family, our world. When I need healing, I return to church. Dip my fingers in the door in the cold, holy water. Genuflect deeply before a golden tabernacle. Kneel down hard on old oak pews and inhale church polish, candle wax, frankincense. Listening to childhood memories close as whispers in dark confessionals. I rang the bell to begin the mass and the bell for consecration. I listened to tired priests chanting on dark early mornings and the chatter of old women after. Once a year on Christmas Eve, I cried with the beauty of angels singing Gloria in excelsis Deo. I still weep on Good Fridays when I feel the fear of shame fall on the back of churches, on men's bent heads like mine. My God, My God, why have you forsaken us? My God, hear our prayers this night as we cry out to you for our sisters. Forgive us for what we have done to each other. Forgive us. Shh. Shh. I was going to read this next poem. I thought tonight for Sarah Everard, who was killed this week or in London by a policeman. And now I know we need to read poems like this every night for one of our sisters, our daughters. Consent. I want to whisper to the unborn children, the sons and daughters of Ireland. I want to teach them how to sing and dance and how to fly, and how to understand the meaning and communication of consent before it's too late for one more boy or girl. But first, I want to start with the nanas and the grandas, the mothers and the fathers, for the truth that we all know deep down is that baby boys and baby girls are born as beautiful as one another. And each one clearly knows how to say out loud, no, I don't want to. But it's us, the mothers and the fathers, who take that power away from them. Go on, go on, go on. Sit up on your granddad's knee, go on. Give your granny with a hairy chin a kiss goodnight, go on. Or finish your plate of spuds. I've been slaving over the sink all day long, and the poor blacks on Brands Road starving. Their fathers driving taxis twice and 3 times around the city, pretending they don't know the way, just to put food in their hungry babies' mouths. And then we send them off to school. Go on, go on, go on. Give us your record to cog. Give us your lunchtime money. Take a day off school. Take a drive from the fag. Stick this or that up your nose, down your mouth, in your veins. Sure, it's only a mighty crack. You'll have one for the road. Have one for the ditch. Go on, go on, go on. But when it comes to sex, we're at our very worst. Boys and girls, men and women, like and poke and text and flirting. Send us a snap, go on. Or a smile, for God's sake, go on. With your tits out for the boys. I'll show you me stroke or me cock, you know you want to. And they say a standing prick has got no conscience, but that's simply a lie that some of us choose to pretend to let the guilty slide, for there's many a horny guy walked a drunken half-clad girl safely home at night and dropped her to her door, whispered gently in her ear, go on, good night, be safe. For that's the meaning and communication of consent, the conversation we all must listen to more carefully. For she's too drunk to say no, she hasn't said yes. If he or she moves off, it isn't consent. And if either one of them says stop at any time at all, before or even during any kind of sex at all, that's what we do there and then, we stop. No more, no less, immediately, before it's too late for one more girl or boy. Friends, I wanted to take a moment tonight to, on all our behalves, to thank Sandy for bringing this family together. Sandy, Elizabeth Ann, your mum and dad have been here with us so many nights, Don, and now Kim. We are a family. And when we look around either the Facebook page or the Zoom room, I've been introduced to people all over the world. Bill, Kate, Matt, Anne, Thomas, people down the road, Angela, Sandy. It's almost our 1 year, and you're our big sister, and we love you, and we thank you. I think this next poem is the poem that somehow introduced me to Sandy. She saw it somewhere on the internet, and she brought me into the family, and she gave me a home. So I want to read this poem from last year tonight for Sandy. It was an early lockdown poem, and Sandy, you've brightened our lives. Cultivating lives has brightened our lives. This world, this Easter, for Sandy. We need to go back down onto our knees and crawl into the dark. We need to bow our heads into the silence of shame and humbly re-enter the tenebrae. We need to wipe a red cross of blood sacrifice onto the doorframe of each home and pray for Passover, again before it's too late, and only some get a place on the ark. We cut the last olive tree down without permission or apology, neither for wood nor fuel, just because we could. We set the ice caps on fire, melting the waters. We forced the north and south poles out of balance. We drowned the deserts and watched the last white male rhino die before our very eyes, live on Facebook. And for all of our science and technology, there was nothing we could do. We infected seeds and plants on purpose with chemicals. We genetically modified foods and force-fed wheat to captive geese until their livers exploded. And then we turned them into cheap pâté that we sold on Amazon Prime. We cut the beaks and claws off chickens to keep them safe from themselves and from each other in cages of thousands as we bred them to grow fat without feathers, to die for the market. We stopped going out to shop long before the politicians told us to stop, and we gave up our civil liberties long before we lost them. And long since we turned onto online shopping, next day delivery from the other side of the world, no questions asked, turn up to work or lose your job. It doesn't matter who minds your children when they're sick or off school, or if your elderly parents are dying. It doesn't matter either if you yourself get sick or even if you fall down dead on the shop floor with the pandemic. You're simply just to be boxed up, shipped off, cremated in no time at all, without a soul allowed to turn up to send you off from this disposable world of ours that we've all created together, out of our want and greed gone mad. One click, one click, one click of a button. We're all disposable. I think I'd like to read another lockdown poem, and I might finish with this one. And we're a year in lockdown across the world. We're a year in cultivating voices, and many of us have lost close friends and family. But there's also something that we need to rebalance and relearn in the world through this, I believe. Lifting lockdown. And now, God forgive me, I never want to go back to the way that it was before St. Patrick's Day 2020 when the lockdown began. Even though we were among the lucky ones still together with two beautiful kids in a house with a garden, two good jobs in the city, two cars on the road. But now I don't want to go back to the stress and the rush of each day, to the waking earlier and earlier, just to drop the kids off to the childminders for their breakfast before school, just to sit in the car in traffic for hours and hours every day from Kinnegad to Inchicore, an hour and 53 minutes each way on a good day. When things are light for some unknowable reason, but mostly it's 2 hours and 10 minutes, and I thank God all of that time for Lyric FM on the radio, Marty in the mornings, and John Kelly's Mystery Train back home in the evening, except for Fridays, when it's always the longest commute of the week, every week. And now I don't want to go back to that way of living, of waking in the dark, of coming home in the dark, of spending all day in the dark with the worry every day that something might happen to throw this fine balance off kilter. The worry at the cost of childcare, the worry that either of the kids might get sick or be sent home from school, the worry of being stopped by the guards and found out for my out-of-date tax or bald tires, the worry of getting a flat on the third week of the month before payday without a penny in my pocket, the worry of not getting home in time to catch the central shop still open, just in time to grab some frozen food, to throw it in the microwave while I shower, looking forward to kissing the children goodnight in their sleep and settling down with my wife for an episode of some sort of shite on Netflix, with a couple of cans of cheap German beer, with only half listening to each other, both of us giving out about the kind of the day we had, hoping we don't wake the kids again with the noise of another argument, neither of us awake enough to realize we both just exhausted, worn down with it all. And she says she's sick and tired of the rat race. For what? We've nothing to show for it at all. Our two beautiful kids stuck in a fee-paying childcare facility for almost 12 hours a day, a 40-year mortgage on a house we'll only ever get to sleep in, a house we'll never own, a mortgage that takes both of us, to keep on working all of our lives just to service with 2 good jobs and 2 cars on the road every day that we can't afford, paying 2 loans back to the car company who owns both of the cars until we make the last payments in 4 years' time, if we're still able to pay on time, and at the end of the month after driving the cars ourselves into the ground, both almost worthless by then, just good enough to trade them in for spare parts, the same garage against a brand new model, just to do it all over again for another 4 years, driving to work in a soulless city far, far away from our children, our home, our garden and each other, with no money left at the end of the 3rd week every month, no savings, no safety net, no health insurance, just hoping no one gets sick or loses the job. For what, she says again. And this time I feel she wants an answer. But she goes on. For a plate of burnt frozen pizza and hard chips every night and Netflix and a can of this piss, she says again that she wants to give up work, or at least go half time and stay home with the kids. Fuck feminism, she says. Fuck the career. Fuck the honours degree and all the hard work. And then she begins to cry. And she says she thinks we could afford it. If only I could get a promotion, just work a little harder. Fuck that, I almost scream. And now I want to cry too. And now I know I should have stopped this conversation sooner, before the last can, and gone to bed together before clicking to watch some next episode of whatever it is we're pretending to watch. And I wonder if it's too late to scream out loud, I never want to go back. I never want this lockdown to end, ever. Is that too much to confess? And the children are happier too, more than I can ever remember. And only a while, after a while, in a bit of a struggle at first, we found our new way into being normal together again. We stopped arguing over whose work was more important. We stopped competing for time with a home PC. And we found our own way of balancing working from home with home education. And the children began to teach me things new each day. They taught me things I thought I'd forgotten, like how to do multiplication tables and long divisions and the names of the mountains and rivers in every county in Ireland. And we learn new things together, like the names of the birds and the plants in the garden. And we notice things for the first time, like the order of the trees come into bloom in spring and then turn to summer, and how the first spring flowers are yellow, then white, then pink, then blue. And we learn things we didn't know, like how Cavan has the highest rate of COVID-19 and that doctors and nurses and frontline workers in Ireland are among the most infected in Europe, and that some children's nanas and granddads are dying alone in old folks' homes and hospital wards without any visitors, and that domestic violence is on the rise, and that separated fathers are missing their children now more than ever. And we learn things we can hardly believe, like Dennis O'Brien and Larry Goodman both own the private hospitals, as well as all the other things the state pays for, like the independent media, telecommunications, Wi-Fi, the water, the meat processing plants, and all the workers there are paid just about a minimum wage and 0-hour contracts, and they're not allowed to join a union, and they're all catching the virus. And my kids seem shocked that all of this is news to me, and then they get cross with me and they tell me that the caretaker government is only renting the private hospitals for public good, but the Minister for Health is refusing to disclose for how much, and the state is paying to them since, and they quote in inverted commas, I'm sure the public will appreciate this is sensitive information for private corporations, and my children say I should have voted for change, and when I joke asking them green or rainbow, they get cross with me again and say, Dad, you just don't get it. The virus is the Earth's way of fighting back. Mother Nature is trying to protect herself against the wrongs of toxic capitalism and what humans are doing to all other life on the Earth. But we come to learn some good stuff too, like how the caretaker government can tell the banks to behave with their manners and give an amnesty on mortgages and loans to people who have lost their jobs, and how private landlords who see people's homes as a way of turning a quick profit can be forced to accept a freeze in rents. How homeless families and men and women and children can be given a safe, warm bed at a room in an empty hotel that was built by cowboy builders in the good times when they were given tax reliefs and other incentives by bent politicians in return for brown envelopes stuffed with wads of money and planning permission, and turning a blind eye to overseas workers that were used and abused until they were not wanted anymore. And then the same politicians with the right-wing elements of the small-town media loose on them with fascist rhetoric, calling them job robbers, welfare cheats, scroungers, apparently sending millions of euro in child benefit payments back home to their poor families. And my children are cross with me again for having lived for so long like a sheep, and I feel like a fool because they were right. But there's more good stuff too, like how A&E departments are almost empty every night, and the pubs and the nightclubs are closed, and my body has recovered a natural rhythm for waking and sleeping with the light and the dark, and now the roads outside are empty. I can hear birdsong all of the time. And at breakfast each morning, we discuss and decide what we'd like to eat that day. We map our journey to the local shop. It's nice to walk slowly and around our neighborhood, to shop in the local store with purpose. Now we shop only to buy exactly what we need, only what we can carry home comfortably. And it's nice to be polite to other shoppers, no rush, no risk. And we wear a mask every time, and we laugh over dinner. Each evening, the four of us together, we say the same prayer at the table each night. My mask protects you, your mask protects me. And after dinner, we FaceTime the grandparents more often for longer each day. And after their baths, we read bedtime stories to the children, and we both tuck them in and kiss them goodnight. And then we go to bed early ourselves, even though it's still bright outside. Over the time, we've stopped watching on our iPads at night, and the news of Tramp on prime time or Tiger King on Netflix, it's all the same old bullshit. Time that we've lost and given up freely that we never get back. And we've cut down too on the hours we spent scrolling through Facebook, fed up with all the polarizing splitting going on in the world, worn down with all the conspiracy theories shared from both sides. Who knows the truth anymore with all the fake news and false gods? Now we've begun to read books again, side by side in bed with our bare feet softly touching each other. Now and then we've even started to make love again, laughing and giggling and hoping our noise won't wake the children after sex. We sleep with the bedroom windows left open, listening out for foxes barking outside and the sounds of birds in the morning singing. The crows are always the first, then the magpies, then the pigeons, then the blackbirds and the robin. On Sunday mornings, we remember how much we miss the old neighbours at Mass, even though we stopped going to Mass years ago. Sometime soon after the last baptism, we didn't even go to church last Christmas Eve. But we both make a promise to ourselves that we'll go again this year with the children and the nanas and the granddads and all of the old neighbours. Then you tell me the pain in the small of your back is gone and the headaches are gone too, and that you haven't worried about the out-of-date tax on the car for weeks, the balls tires anymore, and I realise that the pain in my balls has disappeared too. The one that I've had for years, from sitting in a car first thing in the morning to last thing at night, and then bent over a desk in the office with no windows, staring at a PC screen all day long, bored, fucking senseless, missing being with you and the children. And we haven't eaten frozen pizza in months. And now we talk all the time like we used to in old days. We find time again to plan, to listen to each other and turn each other on. And we both agree neither of us ever wants to go back again to the way that it was before the shutdown. The worry, the pressure was suddenly lifted from our shoulders. For Mahagiv, for your patience. I'm exhausted, lads. Exhausted.
Thank you, Fergus Hogan. Every time you join us, every time. Wow. And thank you for the kind words about cultivating voices. And I really appreciate that. And as I think I'm a little bit of a broken record when I say this, because I like to throw it right back to all of you as well, because, you know, I'm holding the space, but the poets are what make it. So thanks to everybody for this year, and we move onward together with all the things that we will face together.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank
you so much, sister.
Thank you. Well, speaking of sisters, I am a little sad to say that I do not think that Rachel Gomez has made it to the program today from New Zealand. It's very early. And if I am wrong, Rachel, please unmute yourself, but I have not seen her appear in the chat yet.
Yuyutsu.
Yeah. No, yes, I am aware. Thank you. So we will hear next from Yuyutsu Sharma joining us from.
Sandy,
Oh, Rachel.
Sandy,
Yes.
Rachel's here.
Oh,
Yeah,
my apologies. My
it's all right.
apologies.
It's all right. I've been here for a long time.
Oh my
but
gosh.
yeah,
I'm so
I don't know.
sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. It's been a funny connection, so I'll mute myself again until.
No, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Thank you. Okay, back to my bios. Okay, here we are. Well, I am very glad that I was mistaken. I am thoroughly pleased I was mistaken. And let me share with you, as we're always thrilled when Rachel can join us from early morning over in New Zealand. And here is Rachel's bio. Born in New Zealand, Rachel Gomez is a freelance writer and poet dividing time between Hong Kong and New Zealand. Rachel holds a graduate diploma in journalism studies from Massey University, Wellington, and believes poetry is a unique language bridging the gap between self-expression and our common bonds. And boy, have we seen the expression of that this afternoon, evening, morning. Rachel currently is concentrating on her first collection of poetry, and I am not alone in saying that we will all be happy to have you in a new book showcase in the future on Cultivating Voices. Rachel combines writing with illustrations and photographs from her travels, and when she's not writing, she makes appearances at national poetry events, pop-ups on national radio, and stares equally lovingly at her husband and cat. Would you please give a very warm welcome to Rachel Gomez?
Kia ora. Can you hear me? Happy International Poetry Day, everybody. And thank you, Sandy, for having us and for having us into your life and your world of poetry and introducing us all to each other. It's been a blessing. I'm going to start with a little morning poem. I wasn't going to, but my cat woke me, so. The cat's pajamas. Is morning signaled by the crack of light at dawn, intruding through curtains so easily drawn to blackness? Or is it an insistent cat whose committed gaze penetrates flesh with surgical precision, commanding the bones of disenchanted peasants from corridors of half-grasped dreams to rise? Mouse's clockwork paws deftly striking at necks and conchs, while trilling air into harmonic chords, the erect whiskered batons of fur-cloaked conductor, summoning barefooted disciples to dazed contrition. This one is called Where No Bones Lie, and it's particularly important, I think, for, I'd like to recognise the 27th of March, which is also International Endometriosis Day. New Zealand is now introducing best practice guidance. It affects 10% of New Zealand women and approximately 1 in 9 women in the world. So it's, they call it the silent disease. And I think many women will tell us it takes on average approximately 8 years to be diagnosed. And you go to a doctor and you might be told as a young woman that it's in your head, or you have to learn how to deal with pain, or everyone gets a period. So, and a lot of infertility, etc., comes from this. And I just want to acknowledge that the sisters who continue to fight and to research, and to partners, lovers, friends who help us walk this path. Where no bones lie. I write poems from the ashes of buried memories where no bones lie. Telling earth for a keepsake, a pale expectation, which only reverie fulfills. Just as the ray florets of dandelion cloaks offer wishes and drift away. I wear you like kahu by day, while you whistle through the atrium of my heart, a silent aria. So kahu refers to clothing in Māori, but it also refers to stillborn children as well. Okay. Aotearoa. What is my land, this Aotearoa? A fledgling's hope in spring, the child of a forward-thinking clock, white lenticular cotton skies, where dogs bark in Sunday's earnest, a call to Saturday's revellers as croissants flake their souls and bicycle wheels spin in dizzying freedom. What is my land, this Aotearoa? The youthful optimism of a warbling ice cream van rolling along ko-fi-lined streets where tuis earlier drowned us in song. This Tiora, Tiora, in the land of Kiora, that someplace where the lawnmowers never stop and the wild winds pulsate to Fat Freddy's drop, where the silver fern children gather, pearls of hope knitted together by laughter, when the Pohuta kawa trees of summer blush a self-assured red, while green-lipped mussels wear socks and slumber on watery beds. This land, our Aotearoa. Or are we New Zealand, where hard up is becoming rife and soaring depression rates are still misunderstood as just somebody going through some strife? That somewhere, someplace, where young people stumble across pavements at 4 a.m., alcohol coursing through raging veins to drink away the things they cannot articulate, can't yet explain. Where it's everybody's business to know yours, but domestic violence happens behind closed doors, more than we care to know. So it's just a rhetorical, what's up, bro? And we talk of black and white like it really is black and white, because after all, she'll be right until it's not. Best then that we afford the 6 o'clock slot, news of the haves and have-nots, the methamphetamine epidemic, an early morning gunshot in our land, this Aotearoa. This is called The Lady Speech, and I had the privilege of living in Switzerland for 5 years, and my mother came to visit, and we went to, there was a lady speech and a men's speech, of course, as there were in many places in earlier times, and this is a beautiful day that I'll always remember. The lady speech. My mother and I lay on the beach reading, sun-soaked pebbles pressing into bones, warming innards, the grains of coarse sand sliding through insistent toes. Our bodies had bore more angst than fragility might ask of strangers, as it was for many who'd walked before us. And as we looked across the dark emerald lake, I wondered how many memories could water hold? Strumming afternoon tide with circling hands, we'd once sought to summon seahorses to drink, imagining the rainbow herd grasping hooked tails and turning inwards to blow loyal kisses from candy floss tinted snouts. My mother ate a rose tinted peach that afternoon, and it dripped gold onto the hot, thirsty stones. She was delighted. I wrote a poem in the sand with my beating heart, asking who hadn't changed their colors for love. This is a little place on these, it's a scenic seaside village in outer Wellington, New Zealand, and it's known for its special inhabitants, both literary, Catherine Mansfield, and little blue penguins, which is the smallest species of penguins in the world. Eastbourne, four-wheel drives, privileged wives, rata and kofi trees, high school fees, rocky coastal bay, Catherine Mansfield's hideaway, little blue penguins, boy races engines, Butterfly Creek, a Tui's beak, Days Bay Wharf, fish and chips, tomato sauce, East by West Ferries, someone called Mary, the pavilion, sunsets of vermilion, scoops of orange chopped chip, celebratory backflips, one more seaside dip before the clouds come rolling in and the wild wind whips. And my last poem is called Of Salt and Sand, which I'm hoping will be the name of my book. Love, you are an unborn child with an offspring of tears, the lover who cradled night stars but spat out dawn's pips, leaving buried sonnets in the crevices of hip bones unread. Slick as tarred bird, a rucksack full of mistresses, red russet sails flirting on the edge of the wind, a blood orange opus at even tide, as phosphorescent as the wake, the glow of salt-watered taffy seas, an abstract noun no moon could anchor. Thank you very much.
Again, Rachel Gomez, I'm so glad I was mistaken. And I want to put my name down on the list for the first pre-order of your book of Salt and Sand. You've heard it here.
Bless you.
Sign me up right now. Let's start those pre-orders right now. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, our final featured reader before we go to the open mic is another illustrious human in this family of poetry, as Fergus said. And I am always grateful when Yuyutsu agrees to stay up very, very late to be with us, joining us from Kathmandu. And so let me not hesitate. Let me just go to the bio so that we can move things along, but with my immense gratitude to you, my friend, and those of you who did not see the did not join us for the reading from Pratik that we held in November. Go back to the video and see the readers that what you does so well in curating as the editor of Pratik, and I hope we can do another reading soon. Well, Yuyutsu Sharma has published 9 poetry collections. That's so many that I can't do it on my one hand, as I am always putting the fingers up of books. His books include The Second Buddha Walk, A Blizzard in My Bones, and many others. He is the editor, as I've mentioned, of the International Journal, and we can't talk about it enough, the International Journal Pratik, and a recipient of many fellowships and grants from such esteemed sources as the Rockefeller Foundation and the Ireland Literature Exchange. He is a translator and editor of anthologies. He travels and reads widely, and I know that the pandemic has been difficult in that it has hampered those things that you do so well. And half the year he travels, performs, and conducts workshops worldwide. And he loves trekking in the Himalayas when he is back home. I am very happy to welcome Yuyutsu Sharma as our final featured reader for today. Namaste.
Thank you very much. Am I audible? Can you hear me? I'm very glad to join this reading as the last reader. And I'm sorry about the earlier one because I could not, because of some technical issue, the power failure, to join in time.
Yeah.
I'm so glad Carolyne took over and read some of the poems that are appearing in Pratik. And also I opened the reading at a very sad moment as Tanya was reading. And I think it's such a awful thing for us to be suffering like this, and humanity at large due to pandemic and due to all the injustice and hate. I think poetry has more role to play. I will begin with this poem that I wrote when I was in New York City. I went there. I just arrived I was in New York University, and I heard this massacre in Newtown massacre. With this guy had killed the students and killed his own mother. I love my mother so much. I think of her every morning, every evening, and she passed in 2003, and I have not been able to get her away from my mind even today. So this poem, I was shocked that he killed not just children but also his own mother. It's about and someone has to speak out, and so this poem about my mother, whom I love so much, is called After Newtown Massacre, a Prayer. How can I forget you? How can I forget you on the edge of these shores, emblazoned from the tears of the innocent, dripping like tar in the fields of snow? How can I forget you, Ma? Blue rivers that flowed in your starry eyes, soft airs of the riverbeds that polished the enamel of your sparkling teeth and sculpted the curves of my muscular limbs, warm water wells of your breath that pulled the bow of my backbone and sent me twirling your plaything across the road, your blood that wove the coat of my conscience. How can I forget you? How can I forget you, the nishi in the crevice of our crumbling brick wall, vermilion powder paste, grains of rice, and a blunt coin tied up in a scarlet thread, where once you laid a winged seed to sprout a deity out of it? How can I forget you? Maker of my forehead, horoscope of my mind, sap of the lush tree of my body, the only earth of my galaxies, quiet cosmic engineer of my soul. How can I forget you, especially on these shores, emblazoned from the tears of the innocent, dripping like tar in the fields of snow? So this one to to my mother and to the people who are. I want to, as I'm in the Himalayas, I want to strike a note, send a note from here, from the Himalayas, with a reading of my favorite poem, which, I always read as a tribute to the mountains. And the poem is called Little Paradise Lodge. And I always say that this has a reference to Devatatma, a place where soul of the god lives, a reference to the holy mountains, as everything is holy in the Himalayas. And it's 2 o'clock in the morning, so it's kind of fresh. It's like singing to the mountains, the god of mountains. His poem is called Little Paradise Lodge. My pen frozen against the daggers of Annapurnas. And in a blank, shapeless plank, chopped from a sandalwood tree trunk and used as a table, I place my elbows and hold my face in my hands. Blinding snows of the Annapurna ridge, hugely shining in the eye of my mind. I sit in the spacious courtyard of your paradise lodge, deciphering shrill notes of birds in the mossy trees. One bird initiates a lilting note like our meeting, while others let loose a racket of breath vessels, ending with question tags. Can I stay longer? At least one more day in your little paradise lodge. Two birds playing in the crimson cherry tree stir a chord that seems like opening up of the blossoms of our bodies. Would you take me away and marry me? But what about this electric whistle, this cicada's constant cheer, 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 the struggle of our breathless bodies against the dark soot of the night, the pigeons strutting freely in your courtyard, cool like exhausted porters climbing the mule paths in their singing gorges, their guttural quen quen qua, quen quen qua, quen quen qua. They seem to be using a human language, a kind of hush speech robbers might use. Love, in the courtyard of your little paradise lodge, I see silence turning flowers into daggers. A herd of cows shuffles past me in a joyous mood, festive like young girls going to a hillside fair, saying, "Don't you go away, brother, don't you go away. We would be back until dusk with presents." A cuckoo passes overhead, insisting, "Ka, ka, ka, please, do not leave me alone. I'm utterly alone, stuck on the last mountain of the world. And beyond me, just one more mountain where they say a deity lives, guarding a tiny turquoise lake. And thereafter, nothing but a realm of melting snows where souls of the gods live." Continuing on this, thank you very much. Continuing on the same theme of pandemic, it has been so harsh, and I'm stuck here for more than a year, and I have not been able to go even to New Delhi, what to talk of coming back to New York City. And life has changed. It is very, and the mighty and the oppressors have become more strong, and I can believe in a year it can happen, and the whole humanity can goes to turn into a kind of debris of hopelessness. I don't know how poetry is going to deal with this. When the pandemic began, the laborers and workers were left on their own in India and in Nepal and in the rest of the world, and they had to just survive. Thousands of workers walked back home from capital cities like Mumbai or Delhi or Kathmandu. And so, and in one incident, many of them, they were so tired walking miles and miles, and then they slept on the rail tracks, and a train came and chopped them into pieces, and over 18 of them died. So this poem I want to read is called Yaksha Questions. Yaksha is one of the mythological characters who asks questions to the Mahabharata hero so that he can live. And if they were, because all his brothers die, and if he wouldn't answer these questions, he wouldn't be able to bring his brothers back. 5 brothers have died. So this is Yaksha questions based on this tragedy that took place in India, near Mumbai. What's heavier than earth? The weight of sleep on your shoulders as you walk alone in the night. What's sharper than the wind? The edges of splintered stones on the railroad tracks steering through your flip-flops on a blind night. What's holier than the Lord? Faces of your children asleep on your shoulders, quaking from the throes of carrying your blubbered load nonstop on the highway under the growling surveillance of a ruthless sun. What's hotter than fire? Tears streaming out of your parents' questions as they wait on the bare cot under a leafless tree on the edge of a barren field. What's saltier than the sea? You're drowning in the ocean of your sweat, stinging wounds scraped by soft-nailed supervisors of a twisted regime all over your famished frame. What is arrogance? The ability to see nothing, not even a baby slithering through an orphaned womb on the blazing roadside spot of our national highway. What's the news? Your bones being ground like sugar canes in the grinding machine of an indifferent polity. Who cares for people not breathing? The one who cooks you alive in the cauldron of a simmering day with misshapen ladle sculpted out of the moldy flesh of the sacred books, dripping larva of hatred. And who's the traitor? The one who leaves you alone to die on the highway and goes to rejoice in the shelter of his own belly and festering pit of greed below. Well, I like to read, thank you. I like to read a poem again on this same theme. When a pandemic took place in March, my son was studying in New Delhi. He was doing his bachelor's and he just finished and he had to get his degree. So he stayed there and he couldn't come back. And he came like in October or November. For 6 months, he has to be stuck there. And there's no way I could go and meet him or he could come because everything was blocked and everything was shut. At one stage, it looked to me as he had turned into an apparition, a ghost. So I could just see him and I couldn't touch him and I couldn't do anything to him. And it was so excruciating. And he all of a sudden he said he had a pain in his ear. And I didn't want him to go to hospital because he might get infected there. So this poem I want to read is an epilogue to my new manuscript that I'm working, my new book of poems, In God's Messy Workplace. And the poem is called Apparition, for my son Yugang. So much hand washing, son, scrubbing sanitizers with fervor of pouring sacred waters with such frantic frenzy that an elephant's wrinkled face starts surfacing along the jagged crusts of my pores. Holding back the breath in terror to keep the invisible enemy away, piled up fill of surgical masks in the trash cans of my trance, pyramids of gloom rising in the blind vaults of the world where I have turned into an apparition. Here on the edge of this earth, standing next to the fractured glaciers, ready to explode any moment. From the valleys of muted deities, I can only speak through you. I cannot touch you, feel your breath, tousle your hair, or smell sweet odor of your handsome head. Being so far away from you, and much to your annoyance, over and over again, eager to return to my instructions. Fear everything around you. Keep a safe distance. Don't be complacent. Fear doorknobs, street vendors from Lakshmi Nagar, Kureji, milkmen from capital's bordering villages, groceries you unpack along with rumors. Carry a portable hand sanitizer. Let it dangle from your waist like a weapon in a battlefield. These quick words of caution, ash-smeared endings from the swirl of my years on this earth. These mantras that my grandpa gave me, forcing the calamity decades ago, The lessons I received in the 60s, 4 decades after the first pandemic. Come home, he would say. Wash your hands, son. Feet and your feet at the water pump in the courtyard. Clean your mouth with fresh water. Chew a herbal twig to freshen it. Your breath might have gotten polluted from others in the public squares. I didn't quite understand his word. How could anyone get polluted in public places? Didn't notice anything nasty in our quiet Punjabi town. Air's cool and crisp, skies azure blue in the land of the bluest rivers of the world. I didn't approve of his rigorous rituals where he made me wash my hands thrice with ash from our hearts. It's pure gold, he said. Ah, ash, nothing purer than ash, son. His white starched turban over his head, his gruff gurgle. I saw his Adam's apple dilate, a little bird of wisdom trapped in his throat. In our messenger chats, son, I notice your hair has grown long, covering your forehead. In your voice messages, I see an anxiety pouring in from the Rogmar metropolis. Last night, I dreamt a tiny bowl of dirt roll out of your left ear, and you cried out in pain, my little prince, trapped in a fort of filth. I hope you remember your papa, like I remember my grandpa today, someone who loved me, with a heart purer than gold ash. I see you all alone in the apartment, your video games that took you away from me. Now you dream to see the real world, tangible people, busy parks, boats squawking from seagulls, snow ranges, mule paths littered with spring flowers and million butterflies. But lockdown here, I'm only an apparition in Kathmandu, not a valid figure of flesh and sturdy bones. My blood cannot throb to warm your anxious sleep. I cannot touch you or reach out to you, being miles away from you. I cannot take you to Connaught Place, to your favorite cafes, to bring you to the bustle of your favorite squares at Nehru Place, Karol Bagh, Chandni Chowk, Janpat, or bring you back to the Himalayas, to our luxuriant canyons, to make you race around the glaciers, to sweeten your breath in our dreams from the forest of rhododendrons, making you sing along the chorus of summer cicadas, to fill your youthful vessel with the quiet sheen of our eternal snow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, you. And I'm a person sitting here in Old Saybrook, Connecticut, where I've been with my elder parents for the past 4 months, and I'm leaving next week. And while it's had its challenges, I'm glad that I've been able to be with them, and I look forward to your reunion with your family, of course, and to all of you out there who have been separated from your beloveds for far too long a time. Well, I wanted to also say that to kind of quote what Yu had said in one of his poems, what's heavier than earth? And I thought a lot about that line as you were saying it, and it's been a very, very heavy time, obviously, this past year. But yet we continue to speak out, and we continue to witness, and we just continue to call out. And that's, as difficult as it's been, I also think that it has brought a modicum of light and hope. It's certainly why I come to this weird screen every week to have that modicum of hope. I want to thank each of our featured readers for bringing their complete humanity from all around the globe today on World Poetry Day. You heard today from Carolyne Wright, Indran Amirthanayagam, Tanya Ko Hong, Fergus Hogan, Rachel Gomez, and Yuyutsu Sharma. Thank you to all of you. Peace, love, and poetry. And now we go to the open mic with a reminder that the best way to continue for us to have these readings is for everybody to keep writing. And that means support the poets. So please support the poets by buying a book or 2 or 20 today. And Kim Ports Parsons has graciously been putting all the links in the chat. Buy one collection today, at the very least, if you have the resources, my friends. All right, we go to our open mic, 8 more poets. What I love about Cultivating Voices, live poetry, is that on any given day, the open mic readers can be could just as well be the features, and they will be, and they have been. So I'm going to move to the open mic readers. Thank you for being here and extending our World Poetry Day reading. We will start with this reminder that everybody has, it's one poem, your own or someone else's, up to 3 minutes. And we will begin with our dear brother. And let me get one. Yes, our dear brother, Amit Dahiyabadshah. Hello. Hello. Oh.
I'm going to read this 2-volume anthology called Here and Now. Can you see it?
Yes.
It's in many ways a milestone for poetry in India, because it's a 2-volume anthology brought out at a time when people felt that poetry wouldn't sell. It's almost 1,000 pages of poetry. And the poem I want to read from this is called Here and Now, which is also where the collection gets its title, Here and Now. Can you hear me, please? Here and Now. Break the hourglass, scatter sand. Time spends itself upon the open, empty, waiting hand. In vacant darkness, fate looms, weaving endless dreams of broken past and unbuilt future. Break the hourglass, scatter sand. Time spends itself upon the open, empty, waiting hand. In the vacant darkness, fate looms, weaving endless dreams of broken past and unbuilt future. Between frozen ether, the unbroken dawn, your wings are bound in sleeping shroud. The sun, an instrument of your vision, to lightly brush and gild the dawn. It shimmers sweet and waits upon the opening of your eyes. It's true that time has flown and still it flies, but look how vast the new horizon lies. Between the frozen ether, the unbroken dawn, your wings are bound in sleeping shroud. The sun, an instrument of your vision, to lightly brush and gild the dawn. It shimmers sweet and waits upon the opening of your eyes. It's true that time has flown and still it flies, but look how vast the new horizon lies. Wake now, the future begs a footprint. Wake now, the future begs a footprint across the slow quicksand of too much stillness. Before the turning of time's fickle tide, take up the cadence of the heart, a new footprint, a brave new stride. Take up the anthem waiting to be sung in 5 senses, not only one. Amid the whispers and new battle cries, beneath the firework of your burning fears, the drumming of your heart inside, your time has come. Now find the strength to wake somehow, do something, anything, but do it here and now.
Thank you so much, Amit. An anthem
Thank you,
to
Sandy.
start us off. Amazing anthem to start us off. Our next reader is Fiona O'Rourke, and thank you for joining us. I believe this is your first reading with Cultivating Voices today, so it's your debut. Glad to have you with us.
Thanks, Sandy. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to Anne MacDonald for being the first person to tell me about this. And yeah, it's really good to finally meet this writing community. And this is my first time reading poetry in real life, or on Zoom. I've only read, short stories before. So I was raised in the north of Ireland, so it was actually not unlike living in a time of pandemic, from the point of view of constantly having bad news looming over you, or, that sense of waiting, so I suppose I was well prepared for the pandemic, maybe. So these are based on true events. I'll just read. Okay. Always in their sight. Propaganda on our screen paints decent men in army green, blitzed by angry motorists. Why don't you go and catch some terrorists? Army checkpoint dissects street, where British soldier says to me, all right, darling, you 16. The smirking playground Hallion wields a gun like some D'Artagnan. I am in his rifle sight. I am 12. In Uncle's village, all eyes keen for deviation. I laugh back with fear and not flirtation. I may run for cover, not for fun. Jeep load whistles, traffic lights. I pray green, not stoplight sheen. Rifled men will always make the most of captive host. Fat slag, whore, ugly bag. Boys will be boys, their top man rolls his eyes. I am 19, not fat, not ugly, but try and tell me otherwise. At work, a colleague tells me of her clients, teenage girls fired into Jeeps. Squaddy fun, them boys don't believe it's rape. While street women lose an hour's pay, nightly freebies to the military, safe keeps their workplace in the alley. I am 25, know why they can't call the law. My friend, a heads down civvy desker, breaks official secrets with the details. In stations, female cops must drop their tights, for they are classed as conjugal rights. And this is Time Bomb. Some days a stranger's leer mad eyes will steer your glance to 12 years back. A wee girl wakes by lightning crack, the tail end of a thunder dream, where sea roars fit to breach the wall, to haul you from your doll's house bed. Shards crunch a new path in the hall, turns out to be a warning call. The front porch naked, windows gone, reveal a smouldering metal carcass, a car door sprawled upon the lawn. Dad's jigsaw head and shattered screen, nodding, calling, half alive, while on the road, a sundered engine, solo hand and sweater sleeve, white shirt cuff, no hint of blood that crowns the blown off arm. Statue cold, you watch a crew unlid the car like Sam Campbell's soup, take Dad away on stretcher bed, way too long for half a man. A fireman cries, wipes smoke raw eyes, then steers his glance to your way. And to this day, when you close yours, you're sure those eyes were meant to say, you should have said goodbye, wee girl, you should have said goodbye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Fiona, and brava on your first poetry reading. And I look forward to being at your second and third and fourth and many more. And welcome to Cultivating Voices, live poetry. What a day for you to come to your first reading. What a thing to experience today. Well, our next reader is Matt Mooney. A reminder, folks, one poem up to 3 minutes, your own or someone else's. No worries, Fiona. Great to have two. It's no problem. Hello, Matt Mooney.
Hello, Sandy.
Hello.
Here I am.
Here you are.
Tom and John. Yeah. Great night, and I have a poem to read, and the poem tonight I'm going to read it for Tanya Ko Hong, and I want to say, may, as I said in the chat, may her tears of sorrow turn to tears of joy, and our sympathies in Ireland to her and the people that she spoke of so movingly and tearfully tonight. So here I am. This is a poem that was put into my head when I saw a pair of abandoned worn sandals. And this may be a drop of solace to people who are suffering and are looking for help from on high. His sandals. These could be his worn sandals, left behind after being on earth, when we had him to ourselves, teaching us in parables with the love from the safety of a fishing boat, the people crowded on the shore. Sandals, the Messiah yet to come, spoken of by his cousin St. John, which he said he'd not be worthy to unloosen, and neither would I. I'd follow in his footsteps, though I know they'd lead me to his door. Thank you.
Well, I thank you. And therein lies, I think, a really beautiful example of faith and love, as Tanya was talking about, and that we could have a person from way across the pond send a message of love and solidarity, even on these little weird screens, to a person that they see is heart-wrenched in a real moment of humanity. There it is, the power of poetry. Thank you, Matt Mooney. We'll see you very soon. I think I'll see you on Thursday at Not the Time to Be Silenced.
Thank you, Sam.
Last reading is this upcoming Thursday. folks. If you've been a fan of that reading series, our last gathering will be next Thursday. I hope to see many of you there. Well, next is a person whose poem, Our Shared Humanity, also like is a beacon for me. That poem that Don Krieger read that poem to me in private, well, on these screens once. I've never forgotten it. He is a great poet of consciousness and of conscience and consciousness. And as you know, we couldn't do Cultivating Voices live poetry without Don Krieger. Thank you. Welcome.
Thanks, everyone. Psalm 151. Lot's wife died nameless, not because she looked back, but for remembering. Once again, your death angel turned away, left us whole, your chosen, terrorized and prayerful for the horror next time. You command, remember, who can forget? Holiday and self-denial, worship and tyranny, the lies of faith, the firstborn butchered, your people's grace. Two we know defied you, but how many have you really heard? Abraham spoke for the righteous, Jesus for the sinful cheat, but Moses, the murderer, your darling, spoke only for your vicious caprice. Am I true, kind, good? I judge myself without mercy, but the relentless cycle of slavery and murder. We do in your image. We do in your image is humble before your cruel glory. If you truly exist and hear, then hear this. By my poor standards, you are unfit. If I held your might, Almighty God, in that instant, I would erase you and your memory from all that is. If you truly exist and care, then as you did Korach, open the earth and destroy me. For though I claim nothing over Aaron or Moses, I claim goodness over you.
Thank you. Thank you, yes. Well, next we have joining us from South Dakota is Marcella Remund. Hello, glad you could be here today.
Thank you, Sandy. I don't know if I can follow Don. That was pretty amazing, Don. Wow. So I'm reading a poem for International Poetry Day. And this is called How to Practice Poetry. Take a long walk, breathe deep, taste the air, keep your eyes open, try not to think, wet your lips with your tongue, tilt your head slightly into the wind, Separate the sound of a single stone cracking under your boot. Feel the difference in weight between a milkweed seed and a blackbird's feather. Stray from the road on your way home until you are waist high in wet corn. Approach your house from the back. Whistle for the dog with a white mark like a crescent moon on his chest. Look your children in the eyes when they speak to you and raise your eyebrows and smile when they smile. Notice your son's mouth curves up on one side and his fingers are long and squared off at the tips like his father's. Search your daughter's right heel for the star-shaped scar where they tapped her for blood when she was 2 days new. Drop everything when your husband gets that soft, glazed look and presses his palm into the small of your back. Think to yourself how, like the spreading roots of a silver maple, are his hands. Thank you.
Wow, it's very beautiful. Thank you so much. I see some weird sunlight coming on to my face here, but it's appropriate, I guess. Yes. Thank you. And I know that you're doing a reading series also from time to time. Fantastic. Please post onto our site. And what I love about Marcella's reading series is that she brings a feature and other people, and also has the students from the University of South Dakota reading as well. So it's I love that, being able to model so for your students in real live time. So keep up the good work, and thank you for being here today on World Poetry Day. Well, next we move to the Mountain Time Zone with our good friend, Bill Nevins. Hello, Bill.
Hey, hi. Maybe I should take this off. You know, you never know. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can hear me. Okay, good. I would, oh, I see what the problem is. Wait a minute. Okay. I never read this poem out loud, but I think I want to, especially because it's a year into this wonderful community that Sandy, that you've created. And I think I'm going to sort of dedicate this to Amit, because we share some things and he knows. This is called Afghanistan Sunrise. Before he got hit by the Haqqani network, he posted a picture of a lonely unmanned machine gun, M60, I suppose, alone on an Afghan mountain range near sunrise. I remembered his eyes. When I heard by phone that he had died, it was nearly sunrise in New Mexico. I tried to focus on our American sunrise glory for him to see through me, because I knew now he had no eyes himself to see. He won his first Purple Heart a month before he died. Out on a mission in the dark, that sniper's bullet ripped his shoulder, a bloody hole. Yet he kept his radio on. The medics shot him up with ketamine to get him off the dark battlefield, that Afghan village scene, because he did not want to leave his team, and radioed them, "This is Liam, I'm hit, lower the cannons." Their war brothers' battle cry. September 20, 2013, I planned to phone him the next morning, but he was already dead by then. It was September 21 in Afghanistan by then. Green on blue, they say. Friendly forces firing on American troops. Actually, it should be red on blue, an enemy infiltrator attack on a US troop. But the Army would rather not admit that coalition force is penetrated by sleeper agents who know our tactics, weapons, and faces too damned well. Yeah, like they always say, war is hell. Well, this was my own personal entrance to some taste of eternal damned fire anyway. Shot through his heart by an Afghan commando they had trusted and fought beside, a Tajik, an infiltrator, his special forces people now say, on the rifle sighting range that very last day of his final volunteer mission in Afghanistan. At his funeral in Denver, they said he was brave, loyal, hardworking, a keen shot, and funny. Funny. They called him L.J. Van, the radio man. He had planned to marry his love, fly planes, write a book about his Afghan translator. He had planned to come home in 2 weeks. He got to live his life. He got to die, but he still had his plans. L.J. Van, one funny guy. I remembered my son. I stared at the sun, how the sun doth rise, how the sun doth set. They say, life's a stitch, and then we die. From Denver to Afghanistan, from Afghanistan back to Denver, through Dover base along the way. I just gotta say, why? That's it.
Thank you, Bill Nevins. Always a real honor to be in your company with your poetry and your humanity. Thank you for joining us today on World Poetry Day. Thank you. Well, we're down to our last two readers in the open mic, and our second to last reader is my poetry neighbor in Olympia, Washington, my good friend Thomas. Thomas, hello, welcome.
Thank you, Sandy. I'm, as usual, awed and humbled to be here. This is, as you said earlier, our family. This is the family that helps me keep going. And I think I figured out that sort of what this poem is about how poetry can keep us going. It's called How to Paddle a Kayak. Rain is falling on my roof in fat drops through the darkness, makes a strange resonance above, not hiss, not rumble, not friendly nor frightening, but I'm awake and thinking sometimes just washing the dishes is enough. And I want to think something else. So I reach my hand to the nightstand where it falls on a new volume of Transformer that I am only a few pages into, and now flex with one hand, riffling pages under my thumb in search of a random consolation. Where the pages stop themselves in the faint glow from a light left on in another room, I let my eyes drift down the page to discover the lines for this divination. Things are decided here. No one can tell the bones of the dead from those of the living. Tomas was born 8 days after my father's birth, and both are gone. Mother will be 93 this month and wants me to be that person already born who will, according to science, first live to 150. To which I say, I have no desire for that, if desire is a distant memory. To paddle a kayak after you have been left and your brother, father, even son has died, you must breathe. You must follow the ritual of breathing, of releasing rudder, sliding hull over lip of dock into mouth of dark water, slip yourself inside cockpit, feel a balance and a bounce of buoyancy. Reach your paddle to slice and pull.
I love that poem, Thomas. I've had the pleasure of hearing it before. Thank you for being here with us. And yes, I think it does speak to these times. I understand now why you feel that way about the poem. It's great to hear it again, and I'll see you in Olympia soon. Our final reader today is Angela Dribben. I can't believe you are a final reader today. I feel somewhat like it's perfect that you're our final reader today. I think the last time you read with us that we got to hear you on Cultivating Voices Live Poetry was at our holiday party. And those of you who were at the holiday party will, I'm sure, never forget hearing Angela's poem if you were there that day, as well as the other poems. So thank you so much for being here today on another very memorable reading, and close us out.
Thank you. I picked this one after I heard everyone read, and it is in response to you all, but Tanya and Fergus, we should read a poem for our sisters every night. It's in 2 registers, and I saw Don Krieger do this once and it worked. So when I change the voice, I will snap my fingers. So since you can't see it, hopefully that'll do the trick. This is, I don't know how many of you know, but a Defense Department survey was released in 2019, estimating 20,500 instances of unwanted sexual contact in the 2018 fiscal year. That was up 38% from 2016. And the uptick was driven almost entirely by an increase in assaults on women in uniform. I am Vanessa Guillen. The act. Make sexual harassment a crime, as it somehow is not already. My bones, hair, and limbs were found at the end of June. The act, within the Uniform Code of Military Justice, move prosecution decisions of sexual assault and harassment cases out of the military chain of command, as it is sometimes the chain that is broken. My skull hammered, my limbs severed to fit in a box by the Leon River in Bell, Texas, 28 minutes from base. The act. Require an independent prosecutor's determination as whether a case moves forward. Independent, as it is the chain that is warped. I went to church with my mother. I wore the Virgin Mary around my neck. I never took her off. The act. Provide opportunity for victims to file claims with the Department of Defense for compensation. Something for victims, for the victims. We make victims. I am a daughter of Houston and a sister to 5 siblings. The act. Launch an external review by the U.S. government. Accountability, Office of the Military Sexual Harassment Response Program and its protocols for missing persons. Accountability. In late July, Fort Hood officials counted 23 deaths this year at the base. I grew up playing with my brother's toy pistol, dreaming of the Army. In December, the Army found major flaws in the culture at Fort Hood and disciplined more than a dozen officials. It's official. It is our culture throughout history, flawed, accountability. The act. I was left in a shallow grave, meant to be forgotten. Join me to myself and bury me again with the Virgin Mary around my neck. Let her will be done. Poor, exalted, powerful, overthrown. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to take a moment to have you all unmute yourselves to thank all of our open mic readers. And I'm going to say everybody's name: Amit Dahiyabadshah, Fiona O'Rourke, Matt Mooney, Don Krieger, Marcella Remund, Bill Nevins, Thomas, and Angela Dribben. Would you please unmute yourselves if you care to and show your appreciation for everyone.
Hoorah.
Amazing, incredible.
What a night. Thank you, friends.
What a
night.
yes, what a thing. Oh my gosh.
Amazing, amazing,
Amazing. Absolutely. I also want to thank our featured readers that we started with: Carolyne Wright, Indran Amirthanayagam, Tanya Ko Hong, Fergus Hogan, Rachel Gomez, and Yuyutsu Sharma. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thanks to Don Krieger, poet, timekeeper, inspiration to many, as we just heard, and technical wizard to Kim Ports Parsons for designing and posting our new graphics for Cultivating Voices Live Poetry to get the word out. And of course, to my sister, co-founder Elizabeth Ann, with a reminder to join us next week for our final reading of March, our new book showcase with Ann Tweedy, Michelle Parker Randall, Attractive Fahi, and Debbie Bacharach. If this reading on World Poetry Day were the last reading we were to ever have held for Cultivating Voices, I would be very, very happy to have closed us out on this reading. But it's not, and I'm grateful for that as well. But nevertheless, thank you for an extraordinary showing today. And I'm going to end, before I close out the room with, or we close the recording out, reminding all of you of what Audre Lorde says. I think you all epitomize this today, all around the globe, which was, when I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid. Everyone spoke out today and demonstrated that strength and that courage, the beauty of language, the necessity of artistry, and the necessity of community and sister and brotherhood. Thanks to everyone. And of course, be very well. Take care of your beloveds. And obviously, keep writing. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Blessings to all.
Thank